You have a vacation home in Longboat Key and it's time to sell. But here's the problem. You really want to get it done without having to come down to Florida. I'm going to share with you 2 case studies for properties that I sold for out-of-town sellers in the exact same situation as you. I'll tell you how I did it and what they had to do to make it happen. Now remember, if this video is helpful for you, please hit the thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. Okay, that would be great. All right, hi everybody, I'm Judy Mitchell with Premier Sotheby's International Realty. I live and work on Longboat Key. Okay, let's look at case study number 1. This was a condo located in Sea Place. The seller of this unit was recently widowed and she just could not handle making the trip to Longboat Key, and she just did not want to deal with the contents or selling it or getting the place ready. So when she called, I laid out a strategy for her and I said we could make it happen without her having to get on a plane and come down to Longboat Key. So first, I went to the unit to assess the condition and also the value. Second, I provided the seller with a range of prices that I thought the market would respond to. I provided her with a full, comparable report so that she could look at all the properties with recent sales. And I also provided her the photos so that she could look at those and compare them to her price. Then the seller could determine the sale price. So when she did, we signed the paperwork via email, and I was able to really explain everything to her, all the paperwork and everything over the phone. So she signed it electronically, like via email, and it was super easy. So the next step for me, of course, was to develop the right strategy to attract the right buyer. First, I started with my client base, and sure enough, I had an out-of-town buyer that I thought might be interested. So I did a virtual walkthrough of the condo with her on FaceTime, and as it turns out, she ended up purchasing the property on the day it hit the market, and she paid full price. So the seller did not want any of the furnishings, or she just didn't want to deal with anything, and the buyer was agreeable to taking the unit as is. So the seller had nothing to do. Now, really, there was many steps for me to do between that moment and the time closing happened. However, nothing for the seller to do. So now right before closing, I did what's called a seller's walkthrough. And at that time, I found, of course, that there was a leaking toilet. Not great. But prior to the buyer coming, I was able to have the toilet repaired and just called maintenance and had them take care of it before the buyer came and did their final walkthrough on the property. This made the seller happy, it made the buyer happy, and here's the review from the seller once the transaction closed. Now, the key for me to selling properties for clients who lived out of state is really to keep them informed. It's to have regular phone calls with them and, of course, constant email and text updates if that's what they would like. I always communicate based on how my clients would like to communicate. Okay, now here's case study number 2. This was a condo located in Whitney Beach, a lovely villa. And the sellers decided it was time to sell because they were located out of state, but they had identified another house to purchase in Florida. But they needed the proceeds of the sale of this villa in order to purchase the new property. So we needed to get this property on the market quickly and really as soon as possible so that they would not lose the opportunity to purchase the house that they were interested in. So I went to the property, assessed the condition and the value. I researched all the comparable properties, including those in the complex that were currently on the market. That was important to know the active competition. Then I had a conversation with the sellers, and they arrived at a price that really made sense to them and made sense to the market. So we signed the paperwork electronically, again, over email, and I was able to explain all the details so they could really understand everything that they were signing. Then, of course, I had to go about developing a strategy to attract the buyer on the timetable they wanted. Now, this villa was in lovely condition. I mean, beautifully decorated. But it was just like not quite ready for the buyers to walk through it. It had furniture that was kind of not in the ideal location, and it just didn't maximize the space. So there was also some clutter around, and it needed some touch-up staging. So I went in with my team, we moved around the furniture so that when the buyer entered the condo, they had a great experience. We also organized it, and we really tried to highlight all the important sales features of the property. I then hired a photographer to have professional photos taken, and then I developed a marketing strategy, which I implemented immediately. We found a buyer, which was so great, in a matter of days. And then we got the deal done over the course of 28 days when it eventually closed. Now, once we had that purchase agreement before the closing, the sellers came to the property, of course, to remove some of their personal belongings, but it was on their timetable. And it was something that they really wanted to do. Now, because we sold it turnkey furnished, there was very little for them to do. So after the sale was fully completed, here's what the sellers had to say about my work. So if you are interested in selling your house or condo on Longboat Key, just give me a call. I can get it done and keep you informed every single step of the way without any hassle to you, and you don't even have to come back to Florida to make it happen. Now, if you don't even want to handle your personal belongings, but you still want to keep them, I have a solution for you. So let's talk about that. Let's figure out the right strategy for you, and let's just make it happen. So if this video was helpful to you, please hit the thumbs up button. If you have a question, just put it below in the comments, and I hope it really was a helpful and educational video for you. Thanks so much.